Some fortunes are built on hard work and brilliant ideas. This isn't one of those stories. This is about a fortune built on a foundation of lies, propped up by forged documents and phantom injuries. A glittering mirage that could only last so long. The story you're about to hear follows a character we'll call Arthur Finch. While Arthur is a fictional composite, his methods are very real, pulled from the playbooks of actual criminals. The staged accidents, the fake deaths, the intricate money laundering. These are tactics used to steal billions every year. This is the story of a man who mastered the art of the con and used the system designed to protect people to build an empire. But it is also a story about how even the most complex web of deceit always has one loose thread. And all it takes is one relentless investigator to pull it. Picture this, a sprawling modern mansion, all glass and white marble, perched on a cliff overlooking the ocean. A cherry-red Lamborghini gleams in the driveway. Inside, a party is in full swing. Champagne is flowing, and at the center of it all is Arthur Finch, looking like he owns the world. He's charming, impeccably dressed. The very picture of self-made success. Now, hold that image. And flip it. Picture the harsh, flashing red and blue lights of police cars shattering the night. The calm, authoritative voice of an officer. The sharp, metallic click of handcuffs closing around the same wrists that were just raising a glass of champagne. Arthur Finch, the man who had everything, is being led away, his face a mask of disbelief. How do you go from the height of luxury to the back of a squad car? To understand the fall, you first have to understand the staggering audacity of the rise. Before the mansions and sports cars, there was just Arthur Finch, a guy you wouldn't look at twice in a crowd. He was average, unremarkable, and drowning in debt. Working as a mid-level insurance agent in a drab office, Arthur spent his days processing other people's misfortunes. He saw exactly how the system worked from the inside. The paperwork, the loopholes, the way a signature on the right form could unlock thousands of dollars. For most people, it was just a job. For Arthur, it was an education. He was desperate. A string of bad investments and a lifestyle he couldn't afford had him backed into a corner. He saw his clients, people who'd suffered real tragedies, get their payouts. He saw their relief, but he also saw the process. The forms, the codes, the language of loss that could be measured and reimbursed. A dangerous thought started to take root. What if he could manufacture the loss? What if he could create the tragedy, at least on paper, and send the payout to himself? It's a line most people would never dream of crossing. But Arthur was different. He was a mix of quiet desperation and a growing arrogance. He hated his position in life, feeling like a cog in a machine that made other people rich. He didn't just want to be stable. He wanted to be spectacularly wealthy. He craved a life that would erase the memory of the invisible, debt-ridden man he saw in the mirror. He started to see the insurance industry not as a safety net, but as a vault waiting to be cracked. The policies weren't promises. They were vulnerabilities. He studied fraud cases, not as warnings, but as blueprints. He learned from others' mistakes, noting where they got greedy or sloppy. He was convinced he was smarter and more meticulous. It's a victimless crime, he told himself. What's a few $1,000s to a multi-billion-dollar corporation? That was the lie he needed to take the first step. And once he did, he discovered he had a real talent for deception. Arthur's first major scheme was a calculated work of art. It wasn't a clumsy lie. It was a carefully constructed fiction. He chose arson as his way in. For months, he laid the groundwork, using shell corporations and fake IDs, a technique he'd read about in financial crime reports. He bought a dilapidated warehouse on the edge of the city. The building was worthless, but to Arthur, it was a blank canvas. Next, he took out a huge insurance policy on it. This is where his insider knowledge was everything. He knew exactly how to word the policy and value the property to avoid raising red flags. He then created a paper trail for a warehouse full of expensive, non-existent electronics, complete with fake invoices and delivery manifests. He was building a reality out of paper. Then, he waited. Patience, he knew, was key. He paid the premiums on time for 6 months, looking like a perfect customer. On a moonless, rainy night, he put his plan into motion. He didn't just light a match. That was for amateurs. He staged a plausible electrical fire, using his knowledge of building schematics to create a scene that would be tough to disprove. The fire gutted the building, just as he'd planned. When the fire department report cited a probable electrical fault, he knew he was in the clear. But the real performance began the next day. Playing the role of the devastated business owner, Arthur filed his claim. He was the picture of grief, his voice heavy with fake despair as he spoke to the adjuster. He presented his flawless, fabricated documents. The insurance company's investigators reviewed the file. On the surface, it all checked out. Weeks later, a check for nearly $800,000 arrived. Holding it, Arthur felt a thrill more powerful than anything he'd ever known. It wasn't just the money, it was the proof. He had beaten the system. That money changed him instantly. The weight of debt vanished, replaced by an intoxicating sense of power. The unremarkable man was fading, and a new Arthur Finch was emerging. Richer, more confident, and dangerously sure he could get away with anything. That first taste of success can be a powerful drug. What do you think is more intoxicating for a criminal like this? The money itself, or the feeling of getting away with it? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and if you're enjoying this story, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what he does next. The arson payout was just the seed money. With his debts gone and cash in the bank, Arthur's ambition exploded. He quit his job and went into the business of fraud full-time. He realized that a series of smaller, repeated scams was smarter than one giant heist. His new specialties? Staged accidents and disability fraud. He started with slip and falls. He'd scout small businesses, looking for spots without security cameras. He'd create a small hazard himself, a spilled drink, a misplaced cord, and then take a convincing tumble. He became an expert in pain, learning how to describe soft tissue injuries that are almost impossible to disprove with an X-ray. He even had a network of crooked doctors who, for a cut, would diagnose him with debilitating pain, creating the medical records he needed. From there, he escalated to staged car accidents, a much more lucrative game. These crash-for-cash schemes became his bread and butter. He'd slam on his brakes to get an innocent driver to rear-end him, or work with an accomplice to box in a commercial truck and force a low-speed collision. The claims were more complex, but the payouts were huge, often hitting six figures for vehicle damage and medical bills. With every successful claim, Arthur's lifestyle became more outrageous. The nice condo was swapped for the cliffside mansion. The single luxury car became a fleet. He threw legendary parties and flew private jets to exotic locations. He was no longer the gray man from the insurance office. He was Arthur Finch, the enigmatic millionaire. He laundered the money through the same shell corporations he'd used before, making it all look like legitimate investment income. But even a master of deceit can get sloppy when blinded by ego. While claiming to be crippled by back pain, he couldn't resist showing off. A friend tagged him in a photo on a ski slope in Aspen. He posted, and then quickly deleted, another picture of him deep-sea fishing off the coast of Mexico. He thought these little slip-ups were buried in the noise of the internet. He was creating an intricate web of lies, but with every new thread, he increased the odds that someone, somewhere, would notice a pattern. And someone was about to. Miles away from Arthur Finch's sunny mansion, in a sterile corporate office, Eleanor Vance was noticing a pattern. Eleanor was a senior investigator in the Special Investigations Unit, or CU. She was Arthur's polar opposite. Where he was flashy, she was methodical. She'd spent 25 years hunting fraudsters, and she could smell a lie from a mile away. Her attention was first drawn to a statistical anomaly flagged by the company's software, a cluster of high-value claims, all from the same area. On their own, each one seemed plausible, but together, a faint pattern emerged. Several claims involved the same doctors. The descriptions of the injuries, though for different people, used oddly similar phrasing. To most, it would look like a coincidence. To Eleanor, it was a whisper of a conspiracy. She started digging. She wasn't just looking at the claimants. She was looking at the whole ecosystem: the doctors, the lawyers, the auto shops. That's when she found the first solid link, a shell corporation that appeared in the financial records of 2 different claimants and a chiropractor. It was the loose thread Eleanor pulled. Her team launched a full-scale investigation. They put the medical clinic under surveillance and saw injured patients walk in with a limp and leave with a spring in their step. They dove into the claimant's social media, uncovering the same photos Arthur thought were insignificant. The man claiming a crippling shoulder injury was pictured hoisting a marlin on a boat. The woman who swore a back injury kept her from sitting was tagged in photos from a marathon. The evidence was piling up, painting a clear picture of a fraud ring. But who was the mastermind? The individual claimants were small-time. Eleanor's forensic accountants began to trace the money, following it through a dizzying maze of accounts and shell companies. And at the end of that trail, they found one name, Arthur Finch. When they ran his name, they were stunned. This wasn't some back-alley crook. He was a celebrated millionaire. But the money didn't lie. Millions of dollars, all siphoned from dozens of fraudulent claims, flowed into accounts controlled by Arthur Finch. Eleanor had her target. But she had a gut feeling this was just the tip of the iceberg. She put him under 24/7 surveillance, waiting for his next move, completely unaware that his grandest deception was already underway. The net is tightening, but the mastermind has one more trick up his sleeve. Before we reveal his most audacious con yet, what do you think it is? Drop your predictions in the comments. And if you want to see how this high-stakes game of cat and mouse ends, be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. As Eleanor's team was closing in, Arthur was preparing for his final act. He knew this life was unsustainable. The constant grind of inventing injuries and staging accidents was exhausting. He wanted one last, massive payout that would let him disappear forever. He was going to kill off Arthur Finch. The plan was his masterpiece. Years earlier, he'd taken out a multi-million-dollar life insurance policy on himself. The target was to fake his own death and cash in. Drawing inspiration from the real-life case of John Darwin, the canoeman, Arthur decided to vanish at sea. First, he needed a new identity. He went to the dark web and bought a ghost identity, the name and social security number of an infant who had died decades ago. With this, he got a passport and opened bank accounts as Benjamin Carter. For months, he lived a double life. As Arthur Finch, he was the flamboyant millionaire. As Benjamin Carter, he was a quiet nobody, setting up a new life in a small coastal town. His accomplice was a struggling actress named Isabella, who agreed to play his grieving girlfriend for a huge cut of the payout. On a weekend with a stormy forecast, Arthur took his yacht, the Alibi, out for a solo trip. He sailed to a pre-planned spot with choppy seas, made a frantic, garbled distress call, and then remotely scuttled the yacht, sending it to the bottom of the ocean. Under the cover of darkness, he boarded a hidden raft, navigated to a secluded cove, and vanished. He shaved his head, grew a beard, and began his new life as Benjamin Carter. The news of the billionaire's disappearance was a media storm. The Coast Guard found only floating debris. Isabella played her part perfectly, giving tearful interviews. With no body found, Arthur Finch was eventually declared dead at sea. A few months later, Isabella, as the beneficiary, filed the life insurance claim. After a standard investigation, the company paid out $10 million. Arthur Finch, now living as Benjamin Carter, thought he'd done it. He had pulled off the perfect crime. While Arthur was celebrating his new life, Eleanor Vance was staring at her evidence board. The news of Finch's death had shocked her, but it just felt wrong. It was too dramatic to neat. For a man whose entire life was a lie, disappearing at sea felt less like a tragedy and more like an exit strategy. Her gut told her Arthur Finch wasn't dead. But how do you prove it? A man is legally dead. His yacht is at the bottom of the sea. His grieving girlfriend just cashed a $10 million check. Her investigation was stuck, but she couldn't let it go. Her team started digging into the one person they could still touch, Isabella. They put her under surveillance. For weeks, she played the part. Then she made her first mistake. She made a large cash withdrawal, drove to another city, and deposited it into a brand new account. An account in the name of Benjamin Carter. That was the break Eleanor needed. Who was Benjamin Carter? When they ran the name, the pieces clicked into place. They found the driver's license, the apartment, and the record of the ghost identity. Arthur Finch wasn't dead. He'd just been reborn. Now they had to find him. Surveillance on Isabella was the key. The final piece of the puzzle came from the most ordinary source. Isabella ordered a specific, rare type of coffee bean online, a brand Arthur was known to love, and had it shipped to a P.O. box in the small town where Benjamin Carter lived. The trap was set. Working with federal law enforcement, Eleanor's team descended on the quiet town. They didn't storm his apartment. They waited, gathering proof. They photographed Benjamin Carter jogging on the beach, a man who looked just like a bearded Arthur Finch. The final confirmation came when he made one last, arrogant mistake. He used an old, encrypted laptop to check on a stock portfolio. He thought he was safe, but the moment he logged on, he pinged a server that federal agents were monitoring. They had him. The arrest was quiet, a stark contrast to his dramatic fake death. As Arthur walked to his car one morning, he was surrounded. No sirens, no shouting, just a calm voice saying his real name. Arthur Finch, you're under arrest. The look on his face wasn't anger. It was pure shock. The ghost had been caught. The curtain had finally come down. The multi-million-dollar empire of lies had been brought down by a stubborn investigator, a digital trail, and a bag of expensive coffee beans. The psychology behind massive scams like this is fascinating, and so are the intricate investigations that bring criminals to justice. If you agree, make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell. You won't want to miss the next case we unravel. The trial of Arthur Finch was a spectacle. The prosecution, using Eleanor Vance's meticulous evidence, laid out his entire criminal career: the arson, the staged injuries, the social media posts, and the complex money trail. The centerpiece, of course, was the faked death. Facing a mountain of evidence, Isabella took a plea deal and testified against him, detailing the whole conspiracy. Arthur's defense was weak. He was convicted on dozens of counts and sentenced to 30 years in federal prison. The court ordered him to forfeit everything: the mansion, the cars, the art, the bank accounts. All of it was seized to pay back the insurance companies he'd defrauded. The man with $10 million in the bank and a garage full of supercars was left with nothing but a prison jumpsuit. Arthur's story is about more than just insurance fraud. It's about the corrosive nature of a lie. He started with one, telling himself it was a victimless crime. But one lie led to another, each bigger than the last, until his whole life was a performance. He built himself a beautiful, glittering cage, and in the end, he became its prisoner. He got the spectacular wealth he craved, but it was a mirage. In the end, a fortune built on fiction is ultimately worthless, easily swept away by the simple, undeniable power of the truth.